Welcome back, everyone.
It is our 5,000th episode anniversary.
Obviously, as you can tell from the name of the podcast, we do work for the government. Everything we say is correct and should not be questioned. We use code names to protect our identity. Every day we get a lot of emails from people saying, I want to kill you because you have a podcast discussing conspiracies.
Good luck. Good luck finding out who we are. We have code names, and this week they are...
I didn't come up with any.
Great. I'm glad you mentioned the code names, though, coming up with code names. What's this episode about? We can come up with them right now.
This episode is about... We're continuing our Black conspiracy series. Last time we talked about Katrina and Bush blowing up the levees. And today we are talking about something we touched on a little bit. We're talking about the Nation of Islam.
All right, I'll be Farrakhan. You can be Malcolm X.
All right. Those are the code names. Luckily, we're not really talking about either of those people today, so which would be hugely confusing if we were. But we are talking about one man today. This is sort of the prelude to a couple episodes where we'll talk about the Nation of Islam.
Oh, we're going to talk about Muhammad himself.
We're not going that far back.
One man, one mission, one 6-year-old wife.
We don't need to go that far back. We need to go back to the 30s. And we're going to talk about Wallace Fard Muhammad. This is a different Muhammad.
Bro's name is Wallace and Muhammad?
Well, probably not, but we'll talk about that later. Wallace Fard Muhammad was a mystery man who is supposedly, according to Nation of Islam tradition, born February 26, 1877, Black History Month, obviously. And then he basically disappears from official records in 1934. And nobody knows for sure where he came from, or what happened to him, or anything.
A real Cotton-Eye Joe.
He is. Was that a racial remark? Cotton-Eye Joe? I'm just now thinking about that. Is this like a race thing?
No.
Is it supposed to be like a jolly, like cotton-picking slave?
I think you're overthinking this, and it's revealing a lot about you.
No. Remember, a lot of things are actually...
Get on with your Wallace.
Anyway, he's in Detroit for this brief window where he starts the Nation of Islam. And what's really weird is that you'd think that this like black supremacist organization would have been started by a black guy. But if you look at the few pictures of him that exist, he really does not look black at all. He actually looks kind of like a white guy. Have you ever seen a picture of this man?
I've never heard of any Wallace besides the claymation one, so...
Well, the medium of podcasting is failing me here, but just look up a picture of this guy. He really does not have like African American features at all.
I'm looking at a picture of Wallace Fard Muhammad right now. That is in fact an African American. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, he definitely does not look 100% black.
Yes, he does. You're wrong.
No. Just wait until the final reveal. You're gonna feel so foolish for saying.
I'm seeing
this,
another
bro.
picture of him. He does not look black here.
Yeah. See. Now do you see what I'm saying?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Just hold off on that. We'll get back to that later.
Look, I don't appreciate you trying to trick me.
I'm telling the truth. He really is a kind of white-looking guy. All the listeners are gonna pull him up, and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, Malcolm X was right."
What happened to Wallace Fard Muhammad?
He appears in Detroit in 1930. This is where he begins to appear in like Detroit news and stuff.
Saving babies from burning buildings, getting cats out of trees, stopping bank robberies, that kind of thing.
He was doing something slightly less noble. He was selling raincoats and silk door to door in the black parts of Detroit.
I wish somebody would come to my house and sell me silk.
Yeah, he basically had a real job. He was a little bit of a grifter. And then he claimed the silk was from the motherland. And he's like, oh, this is what everyone uses in the motherland. Am I right, my fellow black people? And that probably was not true. And then on top of selling this stuff, when he would go around to all of these like black people, he would give out like weird diet and health advice. And people became interested. They were like, oh, really? Tell us more about your diet advice, like silk salesman. And so he would come back to like lecture people about like their health.
What kind of things would he say?
He would basically say that like certain things should not be eaten. He would basically give them kind of a distorted version of like what real Muslims like aren't supposed to eat.
Like pork?
Yeah, stuff like that. And then as his teaching sort of escalated and started to become more important than the silk sales. But he originally taught out of the Bible. And people said he seemed to know the Bible pretty well, and he had kind of a Southern Baptist preaching style. You know, he's got like a suit, he's sweating, he's shouting, he's getting into it. That was like Fard stage 1. That's what he was doing at the beginning.
Stage 1, Christianity. Stage 2, Muslim.
Basically, yes. And he started off, Southern Baptist, sweating it up. And then he kind of started throwing in other stuff. He was like, by the way, black people, we're actually the best. We are actually way better than everyone else and way better than the honkies.
When does Yakub come into all this?
Yakub will come in later.
Nice.
Although I plan to dedicate the next episode to really more of the teachings of Fard and the Nation of Islam. And this episode is going to focus more just on Fard. So then, on top of sort of like a version of Christianity, he's like, hey guys, he kind of starts hitting him with like Jay-Z bars, or he's like, you need to start your own black-owned businesses.
Ball so hard, motherfuckers want to find me. That shit crazy.
He probably said that at the same time right afterwards. And then he's like, you need to eat healthy, you need to have a family and be a family man, and you cannot do drugs or drink alcohol. These were his like big things, which if he'd stopped there, pretty good advice, right?
That's nice. It's wholesome.
Yeah. Don't drink. Don't do, I don't know what the drugs of the 30s were. Opium?
Opium.
I think people had cocaine in the 30s.
But it was in the form of a soda, so.
Right, no coke, literally no coke. And like, don't leave your kids.
Keep away from the Chinese opium dens for now.
And then he would started giving people new names that would join his group. So instead of your slave name, you would get a cool new name like Mohammed.
You get Mohammed or Muhammad or Muhammad or Muhammad.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big one. He was actually not the first guy to do this, which I didn't know about. I thought Nation of Islam were the people who came up with that. But it turns out that was actually started by a group called the Moorish Science Temple of America, where a guy named Noble Drew Ali was doing this for all of his followers. And actually, Ali was another common slave name replacement. And Noble Drew Ali was also kind of an interesting guy. He claimed to have gotten all of his Muslim knowledge from a trip to Egypt where he met a powerful magician. So this guy basically was like a Yu-Gi-Oh card, like told me this. And then he went to Detroit and like Yu-Gi-Oh'd people and they believed him. And it's actually thought that Fard may at one point have been a member of this other group, the Moorish Science Temple. And that may have been where he got his, like a lot of his ideology from. And there's sort of a theory that he was real involved with the Moorish Science Temple, and then he was like maybe going to be the guy to replace Noble Drew Ali at the top, and there was some sort of power struggle, and so then Fard left to start his own thing. But I'll talk more about that later.
Science Temple that's great.
I know, Moorish Science Temple is a way better name than Nation of Islam.
Science Temple, that sounds fun. That's like,
it does.
That's like going to a science center, but you're also learn about Allah or whatever.
Yeah, it sounds like a good time. There's like Yu-Gi-Oh stuff there.
You
somehow.
get to like do tic-tac-toe with like a big robot, do like a bridge building simulator, and then you get to like pray to Mecca.
That sounds like a good time.
Science temple.
Is this what like Dubai is like? Essentially,
I think so.
I think you just described like the average like American's sightseeing trip to Dubai.
Probably more gold involved, but
anyway, so the Fard and the Nation of Islam, they start off as like as many a church does. They start off as like house meetings. They're just hanging out in different people's houses, and Fard is talking to them about the Jay-Z lyrics.
Did they have ping pong in the 30s? Because I imagine them he just like preaching while like smashing at ping pong.
I genuinely don't know when ping pong was invented. I feel like you're really calling out my lack of historical knowledge. As I don't know when ping pong was made. I don't know what drugs people were doing in the 30s. You gotta stop hitting me with these crazy questions.
This is just my headcanon. It's my fan fiction of Fard. So
okay, you can keep that for now. So eventually they leave the house meetings behind and they get their own place. They have some money now. He's collecting, dues from people.
They have their own big golden science temple.
No, they have like a public hall essentially.
Close enough.
Good enough for now. So then he starts really bringing in the Quran as the main text instead of the Bible. He really starts making the shift from Southern Baptist, like Jay-Z lyrics, to like actual Islam on some level.
How did that go? Because the Bible and the Quran are not very similar.
Well, evidently people were into it, because around this time is when they started to actually get a serious amount of members. So they had like something like a few thousand people were in his group at this point. And there is an article that was written in 1938, so very close to these events. And it was published in the American Journal of Sociology. It was titled "The Voodoo Cult Among Negro Migrants in Detroit." And it was talking about Fard and the Nation of Islam.
That's not an offensive title at all.
Yeah, it was just called The Voodoo Cult by the honky researchers. And it had some interesting stuff in it that I'm just going to read now. What was interesting, this article was surprisingly not racist.
Just the title?
Yeah, title aside, and like coming out in 1938 aside, it actually appeared to be like a pretty serious look at this like emerging group and Fard.
Well, please read this as a 1938 man.
Like a radio broadcaster?
Yeah.
The very first time I went to a meeting, I heard him say... there's so much to quote, I can't do it. There's like walls of text in front of me.
All right, do your best 1938 black guy impression for Fard's quote.
I will do that. So the article has some quotes from members. The author actually talked to some people who were like really early members of the Nation of Islam. And he quoted one of them as saying this. And I will not do an impression. You're trying to trap me.
It's not a trap.
He said, "The very first time I went to a meeting, I heard him say," and by him he means Fard, "The Bible tells you that the sun rises and sets. That is not so. The sun stands still. All your lives you've been thinking that the earth never moved. Stand and look toward the sun and know that it is the earth you are standing on which is moving." That's the end of the Fard quote. Then the member goes on to say, "Up to that day, I always went to the Baptist church. After I heard that sermon from the prophet," meaning Fard, "I was turned around completely. When I went home and heard that dinner was ready, I said, I don't want to eat dinner. I just want to go back to the meetings. I wouldn't eat my meals, but I goes back that night and I goes to every meeting after that. Just to think that the sun above me never moved at all and that the earth we are on was doing all the moving, that changed everything for me."
That's not religion, that's just science.
So, it's very strange, but like apparently Fard hit this guy with some like astronomy and he was so blown away. He's like, I think this guy's onto something.
Did you know that the earth orbits the sun?
He was so blown away with that. He's like, I think I will become a Muslim now. I'm starting to think this Yaqub thing is actually real. He was so blown away. Which, I mean, sort of the real like analysis to get from this is that his audience was very uneducated. Because obviously at the time, you know, black people couldn't really go to school. And so it was mostly people who'd moved from Detroit from like the South. So they did not know that the sun stayed in place. So he's sort of preying on people who are clearly not as educated as he is. Which is kind of a classic cult tactic. Not that I actually really think that this is a cult. It was kind of a cult, but I mean, whatever. The definition of cult is pretty vague. Now here's another quote from the article. There has grown, however, among the members of the cult a belief that the prophet was more than man, as Brother Yusuf Muhammad claimed. When the police asked him, meaning Fard, who he was, he said, "I am the supreme ruler of the universe." He told those police more about himself than he would ever tell us. Which I do like the idea of like getting pulled over and just saying, "I am the supreme ruler of the universe."
License and registration, please. There is no need for that.
Do you even realize who you're talking to, Honky? That's the ultimate, like, do you know who you're talking to?
I'm God, idiot.
You're talking to God right now. And then this is the last thing I'll read from the article. This I just thought was funny. Apparent mistakes sometimes occurred when 3 or more brothers applied for new names, neglecting to mention in their letters that they were blood brothers. Thus, despite his omniscience, the Prophet once gave the surnames Sharif, Kareem, and Muhammad to the 3 Poole brothers. The Prophet explained this seeming mistake as due to his divine knowledge of the different paternity of the 3 brothers.
Oh, shoot.
So he just said, "You know why I gave you guys different names? It's because your mom was sleeping around.
Your mom's a hoe."
Your mom was kind of a hoe. Sorry. That's not on me. You can talk to her about that.
Enjoy your new names.
So clearly Fard can think on his feet here. He can come up with good excuses. He's telling the cops he's God. He's good. You know, he's good at what he does. From salesman to Yamama to religious leader.
To God.
To God. So his basic teaching was sort of like kind of Islam mixed with the black people in America, the slave descendants, were actually descendants of the lost tribe of Shabazz, which I'll talk more about next episode. But Fard was here as the prophet to give them all their true culture back that the white man had taken from them, which was Shabazz and then also Islam. So he's bringing it back to the OG, bringing back the original culture from the motherland. And also, they had to get back into astronomy and mathematics. That was big in the motherland, and they have to get back to that. Also, no pork, like Muslims, no ducks or geese, and also, I think this is more of a southern Muslim thing, no possums and no catfish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of a remix there.
If you do all this, and you obey Allah, then we're good. We're set. We're going back to the motherland. This episode of State-Sponsored Conspiracy Podcast is brought to you by The Pill. The Pill is not what you think it is. It is not a euphemism for contraception. Not anymore. The Pill is the ultimate podcast advertised product. It combines the powers and effects of all other podcast advertised products into one pill that you take 12 times a day. It's Blue Chew. It's Athletic Greens. It's On It. It's Lucy nicotine pouches. Everything that you see advertised on a podcast, you will get from this pill in a simpler, cheaper alternative. It's BetterHelp. You can sit at your computer and Zoom with a 30-year-old psych grad who's going to tell you that he hates your parents, or you can take this pill 12 times a day and get the exact same effects, if not more, if not a lot more. This thing is not easy to take. It's about the size of a thumb, and it's not It's not something that you swallow. It's you smoke it in a pipe 12 times a day. This is a real product that I'm selling. And I'm reading, this is all being read word for word off of their email. We're not going to have another sponsor. Any other sponsor would be a conflict of interest with this sponsor, because this is the only thing you need. You will never have to buy something advertised from a podcast again. It's Ridge Wallet. It's Sheath underwear. It's that thing, again, I'm reading this word for word from email. It's that thing where it's like you get like razors sent to you in the mail. It's that. It will stop hair from growing on your face. Dollar Shave Club. It's that. Butcher Box. You're not going to need that. This is Butcher Box. It tastes like pulled pork. When you have to smoke it in a pipe. You're going to be smoking and you're going to be like, this is like a barbecue tang. And people are not going to be suspicious that you're constantly hitting a pipe at your workplace, because you're going to explain to them this is a pill. Again, I'm reading all of this word for word. Thanks to the pill for sponsoring. There's no promo code. It's $80 per pill. Please buy it to support the podcast. Now let's get back to the episode. And things were going along. He got more members. There's like thousands of people hanging out by this point. And it's not like a lot of people really know about it. It's very contained to like the black part of Detroit that the honkies aren't really going to. Until 1932, a member named Robert Harris started to really create some problems.
I can tell because his last name isn't Muhammad or Sharif or something like that.
Well, actually, his new name was Robert Kareem.
Okay.
And so he took a new member into a room with 12 other like old members, and he was like, "Listen, new guy, are you ready to sacrifice your life for Islam?"
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and the new guy, he probably thought it was like a metaphor, and so he said, "Yeah, sure." And then Robert stabbed him in the chest and beat him to death with an axle rod.
That doesn't seem like a very efficient way to sacrifice yourself.
No, it sounds like he was an insane person.
Yeah.
And so Robert, he gets arrested for this, and so does Fard, just because he's the leader. And then another leader named Ugan Ali also gets arrested. He was kind of like the right-hand man at the time. And Fard totally denies telling this guy to do it. He totally denies being involved. He says, "I never taught human sacrifice. This guy's just nuts." And the cops basically look at this and they're like, "What the hell is going on here? You are all going to the insane asylum." And so Fard gets a straitjacket and a padded cell for a while. I mean, like, think about, like, certain white people they can't comprehend, like, hip-hop. So imagine being, like, a white cop in the 30s, and you see, like, a black Muslim, like, death cult.
What is going on here?
Yeah, what is this? So they went straight to the padded cell for Fard. And then this is their first big, like, sort of protest or, like, political showing is when Elijah Muhammad, who would later become the right-hand guy and eventually become the leader himself, he stages a huge protest where a couple hundred Nation of Islam guys go to court and they like march around and stuff, and it takes the cops like a whole day to kick everyone out, and it's a whole thing, and they're saying free Fard, he didn't do anything. And there's some very interesting news articles from the time.
Are the headlines racist?
So the headline, I mean, it's kind of racist.
Go ahead and read it so I can laugh at you.
Well, no, it's not that bad. It just said the headline is "Voodoo's reign here is broken."
Okay, again with the voodoo.
Again, yeah. They had no frame of reference for like black Islam, really. So they're just like
has literally nothing to do with the voodoo at all.
Yeah. So they were just like, what? Black people who aren't Christians? Sounds like voodoo to me without like looking into it at all.
That's black girl magic.
Basically, yeah.
The reign of black girl magic has been broken.
And the sub headline is Slayer held insane. Fard quit city. Fard was another name that Fard went by. He went by like a ton of different names. And so it says the commitment of Robert Harris, Voodoo Slayer, to Ionia State Hospital for the Criminal Insane and the voluntary abdication from the city of Wallace Fard, confessed founder of the cult of, quote, Islam, led police Tuesday to believe that 2 major steps had been taken in the permanent dissolution of the vicious cult which preyed upon many Detroit Negroes. Ugan Ali, Fard's most sinister and powerful satellite, told authorities that he realized the danger of his teachings and promised to use his influence in disbanding the group. He was released Tuesday after being held in the psychopathic wards of Receiving Hospital.
Traitor.
The day following the slaying of Smith.
Traitor.
He was a traitor.
Voodoo Slayer is an awesome name, though.
That would be a good, like, rap name, actually.
A good rap name, good band name, good villain, super villain name.
Yeah, that is actually pretty badass. Harris was ordered to commit. So Harris is the guy who actually did the murdering. Harris was committed to the hospital Tuesday by Recorder's Judge John P. Scalin after a special sanity commission composed of doctors John Stephen, Alfred Loshing, and Carl Hanna had testified that he is insane. The Slayer, looking peaked and weary after his 2 weeks in jail, sat with chin cupped in both palms as he listened to the testimony of the medical experts. He showed no emotion, although he listened intently to every word. Harris is subject to mental confusion, delusional thinking, and has hallucinations, the testimony read. He probably will never regain his sanity, the doctors reported. If he should, he will have to stand trial for the murder of Smith, Judge Scalin said, in suspending the murder charges against the prisoner. Fard, aka Fard, was persuaded to leave town Tuesday by detectives Oscar Berry and Charles Snyder, who investigated the murder. He seemed willing to go, they said, and said that he would not return to Detroit ever again. Harris slew Smith November 20th by stabbing him through the heart and then crushing his skull with an iron bar. So essentially what happens is, Robert, the murderer, he goes to the asylum. They say he's insane. Ugan, the right-hand guy, he says, okay, I'll take over. I'll break up the cult. We're going to stop being Muslims and doing all this weird stuff. And then Fard, in order to avoid jail time, he promises to leave Detroit forever. So he's basically banished from Detroit.
Damn. Is there a movie of all this? That sounds awesome.
It actually does. I don't think there is a movie. So officially, the Nation of Islam disbands. In reality, this is just when they changed their name from what they were going by, which was the Allah Temple of Islam, to the Nation of Islam. So it was here that they first were called the Nation of Islam, actually.
They rose from the ashes.
They really did. They had a sick comeback. And Elijah Muhammad takes over from here. He kind of becomes the head guy while Fard is gone.
What happened to Ugad or whatever?
Ugan is not really a major player after this.
So he doesn't do his job properly of disbanding the whole group?
No, he does not.
Great.
So Fard sneaks back into Detroit because it's not like Detroit has a wall around it, you know?
Right.
It's not like they're patrolling every single street into Detroit looking for Fard.
Well, I'm leaving Detroit. Bye. 5 minutes
Bye.
later, comes back.
He came right back, and he started preaching on street corners before getting banished again.
We know you're Fard. Get out of here.
Wait a minute. You're that guy from the voodoo slang. Get the hell out of here. So, the Nation of Islam continues to grow. It really takes off from here, because no such thing as bad press. They're in the papers. Things get more formalized, more organized. They set up new stuff, like the Muslim Girls Training and General Civilization class, which is sort of like Nation of Islam for the ladies. It was kind of like home ec, but with like also the Quran.
That's cool.
Doesn't sound too bad. Fard keeps sneaking back in. He returns after his street preaching stint, and he's like, guys, I have good news. I came back to tell you that the white man is going to be destroyed this year.
Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah. The recent UFO sighting in Canada, which there was a real UFO sighting, but Fard said that was a ship called the Mother Plane that has been built by our Asiatic brothers in Japan. And it's going to drop poison bombs on America that it's going to kill all the whiteys.
Did this guy just like predict like nukes in reverse?
I mean, he was a prophet. And he kind of keeps sneaking back in and like leaving and coming back. That prediction, that didn't happen, but you know, things that kind of keep rolling on. He starts the University of Islam, which is actually for like school age kids and is not a college.
Right, kind of got the name wrong on that one then.
Yeah, well, it sounds more impressive than like Nation of Islam Elementary School.
My 5-year-old is attending University of Islam.
Eventually, the cops kind of catch on to this. They realize that like a bunch of black kids are just dropping out of school, and they find the University of Islam, and they arrest Elijah Muhammad for running a school with no license or curriculum. And I like to imagine like the kids who went there having to tell their friends that they're leaving, having to tell them that, yeah, I'm not going to be here tomorrow. My parents are sending me to the University of Islam.
What kind of classes do they have there? None.
Yeah, it's kind of a non-traditional school. Remember that murder last year that people called the voodoo murder, where they stabbed the guy?
Yeah, it's ran by them.
Yeah, they run the school.
I feel like a license and a curriculum are probably the top 2 things that a school needs.
Yeah, maybe a school for honkies. not a school for like powerful Muslim youths.
You don't need knowledge from books. You get knowledge straight from the prophet, God himself.
You need knowledge from Fard. Now here is another newspaper article from the time, which was titled "Voodooist Cult Revived in City."
Again with the voodoo.
Negro children found in Islam school. I like this one too.
That makes them sound like they're dead.
It does, but they were in fact all alive. They were just found there going to school. Truant officers, alarmed by the increasing number of Negro children dropping out of the city's schools to enroll in the Universities of Islam, were advised Monday by Recorder's Judge W. McKay Skillman to bring legal action at once to close the universities. The aid of the prosecutor's office was immediately enlisted. The Islam universities, the court was advised by Archibald N. Henniger, director of attendance of the Detroit Board of Education, are a resurgence of a cult movement here, which nearly 2 years ago was climaxed in a sacrificial murder. A group of officials who were forced to call upon police to force an entrance visited one of the universities at 3408 Hastings Street. It was occupied previously by the Temple of Islam, a center of activity during the earlier cult development here.
I remember them.
Hey, it's you guys. When the officers, headed by prosecutor George W. Schudlick, finally obtained an entrance, they found 46 Negro children in the school going through military maneuvers.
Hell yeah.
None of the pupils or their instructors, there were 7 of them, would give the officials any information other than that they did not believe they were responsible to the state laws, but merely to those of the cult. The state law provides that children may be entered into private schools, providing the curriculum there is in accord with the teachings in public schools, and the names of the pupils are listed with the Board of Education. The instructors at the university were ordered to submit a list of the students enrolled, as well as a list of the studies taught. If the information is not supplied by Tuesday, Henniger said, legal steps will be taken to close the school. So they bust into the school. The kids are running around like it's the military. They say, you've got to shut this down. And in court, one of the kids actually has to testify. And there's another article about that. which was titled "The Girl Recounts Lore of Islam."
Lore?
Schools Mohammed gets probation. It says she was taught in the Islamic New Deal, she said, that if she cut off the heads of 4 devils, devils being unrighteous people, she would win a free trip to Mecca and a button of some sort.
Sick.
I was taught arithmetic and algebra, and that I was an Asiatic girl and cream of the earth, she said. And, prompted George W. Shudlick, assistant prosecutor, and that the Caucasians would be put off the planet in 1934, destroyed. How destroyed? And the girl said, by poison gas and fightin'. The court asked who was going to fight whom. The girl said, you're going to fight to stay here, responded Sally, impassively fumbling at her dilapidated fur neckpiece. A semicircle of 19 members of the Islam faculty stood in front of Judge Gordon and listened stoically to the girl recite what was taught in the syncopated Hastings Street institution. They were co-defendants charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor.
What is a fur neckpiece?
I don't know.
So what do they mean by Asiatic?
By Asiatic, I'll touch on this more next episode, but essentially, Fard said that black people were Asiatics and were essentially the same race as Asians, like the same race as East Asians.
Oh, like we're the real Chinese.
Yeah, basically, like
Okay.
we are. We're Shabazz, we're Japan, we're China, we're black, like we're just everything.
The way the modern black Israelites say that kind of thing. That's just how it was said back in the 30s. We're Asiatic, cream of the crop of the earth, brother.
Yeah, pretty much. So Fard he's kind of in hot water again because of this whole fake school thing.
Not a great idea, especially making all of the curriculum just military training.
Yeah, that was not great. And there were rumors circulating around that the cops had enough of him sneaking in and out of Detroit and were just gonna kill him.
Look, dude, you're at your band. You cannot keep coming in here.
You have been perma-banned from Detroit, and you have to go.
You have to stop making alt accounts.
Yeah. And so this these rumors finally scared him off for good. He leaves Detroit, never to be seen from again in Detroit. Now, officially, there's no 100% confirmation of what happened to him after he left Detroit. Throughout his life, and even in Detroit, he used a ton of aliases. There's almost no pictures of him. There's 5 pictures of him that exist. And so you can't say for sure what happened to him post Nation of Islam. However, there is a pretty compelling theory that I definitely think is true. There is a man named Wally Dodd Ford. Ford, not Fard. Wally Dodd Ford, who lived in LA, ran a restaurant, and at one point was arrested for assault. And so there is a mugshot of Ford, and it definitely looks like Fard. There is a strong resemblance, especially if you account for age. It really looks like him. Also, the name is the same. Wally Ford, Wallace Fard. It's clearly him. But this discovery of Ford did not really clear up anything about his actual origins, pre-Detroit. Because on his World War I draft card, this guy, Ford, who's probably Fard, he claimed to be from Afghanistan. And then on his marriage certificate, it says that he was Spanish. And then on the census, the 1920 census, which the FBI dug up, it says that he's from New Zealand.
What the hell?
So back in the day, you could just do this. You could just write down whatever you wanted on official documents, and people didn't check or cross-reference anything. You could do anything.
Don't you try that now, citizen. We're on your ass.
No, this will not work now. This will last about 1 hour now before the government finds out.
Before the SWAT team busts down your door and shoots you in cold blood.
Yeah, but in the 30s, you could just say, yeah, I'm from Afghanistan. Yeah, I'm from Spain. It was the Wild West.
Did I say Spain? I meant New Zealand. Sorry.
You could self-report your income at the bank to get loans. It was crazy.
I'm a $10 billion, please.
You could just say anything. I think I've talked about this before, but it is just hilarious to me what you could get away with back in the day.
You could rob a bank very easily. As long as you got away within like 6 or 7 hours, you'd be good.
You're gone.
They could never catch you.
Now here's another thing that makes it clear that Ford is in fact Fard. There's another arrest, an unrelated arrest, where the Heraldo de Mexico, which was an LA paper at the time, it described him as a street politician. Clearly there's a connection here. Now, despite all of this evidence, and the fact that the mugshot literally looks just like him, the official stance of the Nation of Islam is that it is not Fard.
He probably just snuck back into Detroit again.
On their website, on the Nation of Islam website, it says, the short, small-framed, white-looking Fard Muhammad and the taller, heavier, dark-complexioned, Mexican-looking Wallace Fard are clearly two different individuals. The FBI closed its search, admitting failure in the effort to identify the two men. In addition, the Bureau's investigation did lead them to suspect that W.D. Fard was actually an Arabian. In this case, the FBI's position agreed with that of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It is bad enough to base a biography on hostile sources, but to go so far as to distort even those in order to maximally discredit the subject makes one wonder if COINTELPRO is still operative with, quote, new friends in the media. And I think by that, I think they mean Jews.
Yeah. How many parentheses were there in that quote?
Well, just one. I don't think it's that new of a statement. But, so, their response to this whole Fard thing is basically, stop COINTELPROing us. This is an attack. The Jews did this. The pictures don't look the same. It's not him.
And he's definitely not hiding in our temple.
If you want to know if it's him, if you want to see for yourself, look up the mugshots. Clearly it is him. Other evidence aside, it looks just like him.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it really does.
But I don't know, two people can look the same and have the same-ish name. That happens.
True. It's you can't say with 100% certainty that it's him, but I'm pretty sure it's him. Now that concludes the tale of Fard, and that is the origin of the Nation of Islam, which are the ultimate black conspiracy theorists. They are the kings of the black conspiracy.
They were, but nowadays we got some real crazy Yakub, alien, Chinese, Wuhan, black Mozart.
That sounds like a future episode, what you're talking about. But the next episode after this, continuing in our Black Conspiracy series, will focus more on what the Nation of Islam actually believes, what Fard taught, and sort of what they did moving forward under the helm of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Moving forward or moving forward? Fardward. Fardwar. I did not expect to do a whole episode on this, but basically the more I read about it, the more interesting it became.
We right now we are two God-fearing Americans, but I feel like by the end of our Black Arc, we will have joined the Muslim Brotherhood.
You think we're going to go full native on this one?
We might get kicked out of the U.S. government.
If we get kicked out and fired, do I get to keep this microphone?
I think the NSA is going to hook you up with another one, but you're not going to know about it.
Dang. You're probably right about that.
We're just going to put one in your phone.
We're going to go from being COINTELPRO to getting COINTELPRO'd, just like the Naish.
We're going to be at odds with our new friends in the media.
Notice how, actually, what's interesting, notice how this episode did not contain any discussion of Jewish conspiracies. because that simply was not a thing at the time of Fard. That all comes in later.
I think back then everybody just like openly hated Jewish people, right?
Well, that is true. Yeah, I mean,
It wasn't until the Holocaust where everybody's like, okay, hold on, too far.
yeah, ironically, the Holocaust did sort of dampen like casual anti-Semitism, which was big in the 30s in America and Europe. But I think that's all I have to say about Fard. Again, don't email us if you're white.
And our official stance on the Palestine-Israel situation is whatever Biden says, because he's our boss.
Yeah, see Biden for any of our opinions on current affairs. Our direct manager, we report directly to him. See you in like 2 weeks for huge Yakub pills.
See you in 2 to 7 weeks.